Sandra, our next guest says Democrats' anti-police stance could hurt them on the political front. The headline of his Wall Street Journal op-ed reads, quote, "The left brightens GOP midterm chances and Democrats won't have a leg to stand on if they keep shooting themselves in the foot." Let's bring in Karl Rove now. Karl, we do know that the law and order message gained Republicans seats in the House in November of 2020. Do we expect, if the Democrats keep going down this road of defund the police, that they could lose even more seats in November 2022?
Yeah, that was the point of my article. Incidentally, I don't write the headlines. Sometimes they're really good, and this one's a really good one, but I don't write the headlines. I just write the column topic. But yeah, we saw this in 2020, as you point out, and it wasn't just even in Congress. We saw it in the Texas legislature, of all things, because we had a city councilman in Austin, Texas, vehemently in favor of defunding the police, who ended up hosting fundraisers for Democratic state legislative candidates, and it became an issue even in those races. So up and down the line, and we had this, the chairman of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee went on Joe Scarborough last week and mishandled the issue. We had Rashida Tlaib, the congresswoman from suburban Detroit, come out and say that policing is inherently and intentionally racist and cannot be reformed. So we need to abolish the police, abolish incarceration. And what was the response of Democratic leaders to that? Milquetoast. Nancy Pelosi was, sort of dismissive of it, and the White House said, well, that's not the president's position. But until they divorce themselves from those kind of sentiments in a very strong and forceful way, it's going to be easier for people to remember the things that some Democrats say about it than the milquetoast responses of some Democratic leaders.
But in the wake of the Derek Chauvin conviction, President Biden certainly came out quickly to point to what he said was systemic racism in this country and in police forces, which prompted the Wall Street Journal to write in this op-ed, "Joe and Jen's police narrative, quote, instead of treating each case on its individual merits, we now have a movement that takes every shooting involving black victims and white police officers and attributes it to systemic racism. When politicians pile on instead of calming the waters and ensuring a clear-sighted evaluation of what happened, emotions are whipped up and facts are cut to fit the narrative." Is the narrative already pre-written here and they just cut those facts to fit in?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think my colleagues at the Wall Street Journal got it absolutely right. Look, what we saw on that film of the death of George Floyd was evil, the evil in the heart of one man. But to then take from that and say that the entire system of policing is systemically racist, and that all of those people who get up every day, don the blue, men and women, people of every race, creed, and color, to say that they're systemically racist is beyond the pale, I believe. We need to judge people on the conduct of their character and not the content of their skin color.
Right. Now, while you've been listening to music on 6th Street here in Washington, D.C., the big argument has been over whether or not Washington, D.C. will become a state. Mondaire Jones, newly minted Democratic congressman, had this to say about the Republicans' opposition to it. Let's listen here.
One Senate Republican said that D.C. wouldn't be a, quote, well-rounded working class state. I had no idea there were so many syllables in the word white. With all the racist trash my colleagues have brought to this debate, I can see why they're worried about having a place to put it.
He was talking about the fact that there was a lack of a landfill in Washington, D.C. Not surprisingly, though, Karl, Republicans were incensed at those remarks, asked that they be taken down. He voluntarily removed them so they didn't have to be struck from the record. But is Republican opposition to D.C. statehood racist?
It's constitutional. The United States Constitution sets up the District of Columbia as a separate entity, separate and apart from the states. The founders did not want to have the nation's capital be a state because they had seen the reaction in other instances where capitals had become centers of political dissent and political controversy. So they've set it up. The capital of the United States was going to be separate and apart from the 13 states that made up the original United States. So look, Republicans, let's be honest, Democrats want D.C. to be a state. Rather than, we gave the Virginia portion of the district back to Virginia over a century ago. And the only reason that they want D.C. to be a separate state rather than have its voters vote in Maryland is that they want 2 Democratic senators and 1 additional Democratic congressman. It's a power grab, simple and short, and a violation of the Constitution.
Karl, always good to see you. Have a good weekend. Hope you catch some fish this weekend.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you. Not as big as your boys, though. Not as big as your boys.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.